Awesome. So developers, we have more great sessions coming up. Our next session is about Entity Framework Core Power Tools CLI. I'm so excited to invite Eric on stage. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Aika.
So thank you so much for joining us. We can just move forward with EF Core Power Tools CLI. I guess that's a new tool I've never heard before.
Yes, it's a brand new tool. It's a bit in preview for about half a year, waiting for .NET 8 to be released. So I'm happy to be able to finally release the proper version of it now. And this session will be a demo of it. Yes.
Awesome. So whenever you're ready, you can share us.
Of course. So my session is called EF Core Database Model First. Take it to the next level with the Power Tools CLI. My name is Erik Ejlskov Jensen, and you can reach me on GitHub and Twitter /X under the tag ErikEJ. Please feel free to mention me on Twitter if you have any follow-up questions for this session that do not get answered during question time. And also, if you have any additional questions, feel free to follow up with a feature request or issue on GitHub. But let's just jump straight into the demo now. I'm going to show you some here. So for this demo, I will be showing everything directly in Visual Studio Code. And I have installed a couple of extensions in Visual Studio Code to help me with this demo. The MS SQL extension for working with the SQL Server and Azure SQL Database. And I have also installed the C# Dev Kit, which allows me to work with .NET project and solutions directly in Visual Studio. Directly in Visual Studio Code. So as you can see, I don't have any folder opens or anything like that. Because I have this C# Dev Kit installed, I actually get the option to create a .NET project down here at the bottom. So let's do that. We get a selection of available .NET templates. For this demo, I will just create a console app. And we will put it in the temp folder. And .NET demo. So I will put it in the temp.NET demo folder, this new .NET project, which will be a console app. And I will call it .NET Conf. And now we can see that these files are added to our .NET demo folder, a solution file, and then a .NET Conf project file. And in addition, since I have this C# Dev Kit extension installed, we will immediately get a view of the project with a solution file that was automatically created for us. And we can view the packages installed in the project file here in this visual representation here in our Explorer. So in this demo, I will show you how you can quickly get started with an existing database. And since I have the SQL Server extension installed also, it will now list some of my data connections. And I have a database, a connection to a database called Northwind, which contains a number of tables. And it also contains some stored procedures, and some functions. We will try to see how we can map these and create a database context and related entity classes using this new Power Tools CLI tool. So first we need to go and install the tool. I will go to the terminal and just go to the project folder. So I need to install the tool. It's a .NET global tool, and I can install it with the .NET tool install command. And the name of the tool is, let's just zoom out a bit, is ericeda.efcorepowertools.cli. And I would like to install version 8. I already have the tool installed, but this is the command you need to use in order to install the tool. So let's try to run the command. The command for running the tool is efcpt. And let's just have a quick look at the help screen. Sorry, the help screen. Yeah. So we have the ability to put our connection string, our ADO connection string for our database in as a first parameter, and then we specify the provider. And I have a convention for some abbreviations you can use for the provider name. So, for example, to point to this database that we are already using, the Northwind database that I have locally. I can use a connection string similar to this. This database is located on my local SQL Express instance, but it might as well be located on an Azure SQL database. And then I put the abbreviation for the provider, which is in this case is MS SQL. When I run the tool, it will now look at all the objects in the database and generate code for those tables, stored procedures, and functions that it finds inside the database that we can then use in our project. So it found a number of tables, views, stored procedures, and functions. We're also getting some warnings that some of the columns couldn't be mapped. We'll look into how we can fix that later. And finally, it also created a README file. But let's just look at what the result of running this was. Now in the project folder, we have a models folder, which contains all the code that was generated. So a class is generated for each of the tables in the database and for each of the stored procedure result sets that is also in this database. And then a Northwind context CS file, which is this EF-core file that gets everything together. And you can see we get red squiggles now because we don't have a reference to entity framework in our project. Let's see how we can add that. So if we look at the README file, I will just look at it is in preview mode here. So we can see that we get some advice on what we need to add to our project. So we'll add this item group to our project file. Let's just shut this down here and I double click the project file, and then I will add this package reference to my project, which will install the Entity Framework Core SQL Server Provider version 8. And I will save this. And as you can see, the packages. So because I have this C# dev kit installed, it will automatically start restoring packages for me. And now this package is installed inside my project. And if I open the DbContext, I should be able to see that now Entity Framework Core is installed, and I don't get any more squiggles because now we have this library installed, and we know what which knows what a DbContext and so on is. So in addition to the DbContext, which is where there's a DB set defined for each of the tables in our database, we also have a class per table, which is this C# class, which has properties that represent our columns in the database, but in a strongly typed C# fashion, of course. So if we're not pleased with how this code is generated, for example, we might want to call this class not Northwind context, but maybe Northwind DbContext, and maybe make some other changes to the generated code. We can do that by modifying the configuration file. So the tool installs a number of tasks. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see them now actually. But let's open the config. The tool also added a configuration file to our code, and this configuration file defines all the settings that we can use in our used to specify how the tool is running, and set our options that allows us to customize how code is generated and what objects are included in the generated code. So let's try to modify some of those settings to suit our needs better. So first of all, I'm going to set soft delete. Notice the experience that you get inside Visual Studio Code. There's IntelliSense for explaining what all those options mean by hovering over them. So we're going to run cleanup of obsolete files, meaning that if some of the files that are in our models folder are no longer needed, they will be removed or actually just soft deleted by added to the recycle bin. So we will make sure that all the that obsolete files are removed when we start changing options, and we will change the DbContext name to Northwind DbContext, and let's just change the root namespace to .NET 8 instead of .NET Conf. If you notice, there was also code generated for a table called migration history, which is not really a table that we want to include in our DbContext. So we can actually exclude that table by locating it in the list of tables and setting exclude equal true. And notice how we get IntelliSense for the options that we can set here as well. So we can also exclude with a wildcard. It's not something I'm going to demo, but it's something you can read more about in the GitHub repository for the tool. So again, we can run the tool, and to do that, we simply just need to run the same command we did before. efcpt, the ADO.NET connection string, and the name of the provider. Notice that the tool supports not only SQL Server, but basically all providers all the major providers that are supported by Entity Framework Core 8, and that includes Postgres, SQLite, MySQL, Oracle, and And I think that's about it. So let's run the code again. It will now respect the settings that we did in our modified configuration files and regenerate the code accordingly. So if we look at the models folder, we now have now the DbContext is now called Northwind DbContext, and we can see that the namespace has also changed. Again, if you are in doubt about how to proceed, you can refer to this Readme file, and it also shows what you should do to register your connection and what connection string you should add to your configuration. There's also links to more information and the GitHub repository at the bottom of this Readme file that should hopefully be able to get you to some tutorials and potentially ways of getting in contact with me as a maintainer. So finally, we can try to see if we can fix these error warnings, these warnings we got here. Could not find type mapping. So that means that we actually need to enable the type mapping for these special types, special SQL Server data types, hierarchy, ID, geometry, and geography. So let's see if we can do that. The two additional warnings we actually not able to change unless we change the definition of our of these functions and stop procedures that doesn't a stop procedure that doesn't return a named result set and a function that has a TVP parameter which is not currently supported. But for the other ones, again, we can open the configuration file and we can go to the mapping type mapping section, and you can see that here's already some options available to start using hierarchy, ID, and spatial, which is the geography and geometry classes. So if we make these true and true, we should be able to get rid of these warnings we saw. I just saved the settings file again here. And again, we can run the tool one more time. So, and in the README now has been a couple of additional packages has been added to the README because those packages are needed to support mapping these additional types. So we'll add these additional packages to our project. So we have a particular package called Net Topology Suite, which adds support for the spatial types. And there's a new package called SQL Server Hierarchy ID. It used to be a third-party community package, but it's now part of the actual product, which allows you to map hierarchy ID. Also notice, which is a new feature in EF Core 8, that if we go to this special class here, that date and time columns. So this is actually a date column inside SQL Server, and this is a time column, and they're now automatically mapped to date only and time only. So if we go back to the configuration file, before they used to be mapped to date, time, and time span. So that's because this is on by default for EF Core 8. If you don't want to, if you're upgrading and don't want to immediately start using these new types, you can change this value to false and maintain compatibility with how code was generated previously before support for date only and time only was built in. So let's try to see if we are still getting these warnings. yeah, we can see we're only getting the 2 remaining warnings now, which we are not able to fix at this point in time. So finally, we can actually start using the code that we generated in just a few seconds, 1.5 seconds, as you can see down here, by actually using our DbContext. So we'll do that here, and then we can write db. So that means we can now starting to write link to entities queries. For example, order by. Notice the intelligence I also get from the C# dev kit. So this query will get all the customers from the database and order them by name, and then take the 10 first of those, and then return them as a list. And then we can write them to this console. Yes, we forgot to wait up here. And then we can right-click this project and just start a new instance of the application, or we can even start it without debugging. So in the terminal, the program will be built, restored, and sorry, we need to the C customer doesn't contain council, so it's actually contact name. So sorry, the name of customer is actually contact name. We'll just quickly fix that. That's why IntelliSys were complaining. And we also need to add the connection string to the code. So we will enable on configuring here. And then run the output, run the tool again. And let's just make sure that this is saved. This will actually add the connection string to the generated code. This is generally not something you should be doing. Why is it still? No, was it still complaining about that? Use spatial tool, conf, we have all these. Okay, so let's try to run the app again. Did we not? We added not configuring. Northwind DbContext. We need a public constructor as well. I don't see that. Let's just go back and see if we to the config file. True. That's because we were in the wrong folder. That's better. The terminal was actually running in the wrong folder, which tripped me up here. And finally, we are able to get the first 10 contact names from a customer's database. So let's just switch to the PowerPoint slides here. So hopefully you realize that with this tool and together with Visual Studio Code, you can get started with EF Core and an existing database in seconds. You can map SQL Server and Azure SQL functions and store procedures on top of just mapping tables and views, like you can do with the built-in tooling provided by the EF Core team. In addition, you can actually use a SQL Server database project as a source of the schema instead of a live database. If you want to, you can customize the generated code further with T4 templates. If you're interested in that topic, I did a presentation at last year's .NET Conf, which demonstrates exactly how to do that. And hopefully you realize that you can use this tool, command line tool with Visual Studio Code for a good developer experience. So basically my call to action is to go and install the tool and play with it. And of course, please provide feedback via Twitter, or if you encounter any issues or have a feature requests or ideas, contact me on the GitHub repository. So let's go to StreamYard and stop presenting.
Thank you, Eric, for the great presentation.
You're welcome.
It was awesome. We have a couple of questions in the chat. Cool. For example, where should I go to find more information about this tool? Is there any documentation or resources available?
You actually go to my GitHub profile. As I mentioned earlier, that's where you should contact me. And then you can go to the EF Core Power Tools repository. Let me just share the link with you in chat. Maybe you can share it with everyone else.
Of course, yes.
So this is where you should contact me for the tool. It's actually not a Microsoft tool. It's a tool that I maintain, and it's an open source tool. So anybody who has good ideas from it and feel like they can contribute are, of course, also able to contribute to the tool. But at least they can provide feedback or feature requests or bug reports on this link here that I'm sharing for the GitHub repository. It's github.com/EricEJ, like my tag here, and then EF Core Power Tools.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll definitely share that in the chat. And one interesting question, Johannes found this very interesting. And could it ever cause a DB lock if there are over 100 or so tables?
While running the tool, or no, I have users that have had thousands of tables, and but you generally shouldn't really be generating one code that contains 1,000 of tables. Maybe you should think about, do you actually need to refer to all those tables in your code and only include those tables that you actually need? There would be some performance impact on starting up your application if it contains a huge number of tables that are all interconnected.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's all we have in the chat at the moment. That was an
Okay.
awesome session, Eric. Thanks for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
And I hope we see you next.
Sorry,
dotnet
as I
Conf.
mentioned, go and install the tool, .NET Tools, install Eric EJ EF Core Power Tools.cli and play with it, and let me know what you think. If you are already using Visual Studio, there is a Visual Studio version, more graphically based version of this tool already available for you in Visual Studio. But if you're using VS Code or any other tool that is not Visual Studio, you can use this tool as an alternative.
Okay, so install EF Core Power Tools and let Eric know about your experience. We appreciate your feedback. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And it's so nice to have you in .NET Conf. Hope to see you next year.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.